Welcome to the Therapist Burnout Podcast, episode 94. Hey therapists, welcome back to the program. Today I have a guest for you, and I'll have a guest next week, which I'm really excited to have these two guest episodes. I'm putting my private practice closure series on pause because I have a lot to do. The holidays are coming. Company's coming. I'm going to link that video at some point. At any rate, I need some time to do some things, and I have these in the hopper ready to go. And Alki Thompson is my first guest that I'm going to share with you. So I met Alki on LinkedIn, and we were talking all things career change. And when I first started this podcast, I felt really like, who am I to talk about career change? What do I even know about career change, given that I don't seem to have it together at all? So I did a career coaching certification, and I think came to my own knowledge as well about really what is effective. And I started really talking a lot with Alki about his role as a career coach, a recruiter. He's just been in the career change streets for a long time, longer than I have. And we resonated so much. And so, number one, it's validating that someone who's been in this field for a very long time, that we're kind of speaking the same language. And I think just recently, my truth about what I think about pivots is I'm listening to myself more. And so that is great. I think for you, what you take away from that is listen to yourself, listen to your own knowledge, and start to follow those breadcrumbs of where it's leading you. So in this episode, we're talking all things career change. We're going to talk a little bit about recruiting and maybe how to connect with a recruiter if that's something you want to do. And maybe why thinking about career coaching or consulting might be something you want to do, and maybe something you don't want to do, like the traditional version of that. And also, I think we talked about finding your why for career change. And I believe you have to have multiple whys. My whys for doing this was multiple. And I think my whys for continuing to figure out the mix in my work life is because there is no balance. There is trying to balance our current situation with our work life, with our home life, with whatever that is bringing, and really having a work life that supports yourself as a human. And so that's the way I view it. That's the way I see it. And I will continue the private practice closure series in a couple of weeks. So probably later November, I'm going to wrap up that series, and hopefully my course is going to be ready. If you think you know how long something will take you, pretty much double that. And so, but just being transparent is taking longer than I ever thought. So I'm not offering any consulting or coaching offers for anyone right now as I'm trying to finish this project. And I have a day job. So I've kept that day job. And one of my things had been, if I do go into being a full-time consultant or coach, I need to make sure that I have some of the grounding work and some of the roots that I need to make this work. So I'm not recreating the wheel all the time. I have so many resources that I've developed over the years, but I needed more of a process put it into a course. So I can say, yes, here are my termination scripts, which I've developed, and they're in there. And so pointing to that things for people. But I'm also cooking up lots of other things in my mind space for the new year, which will look like rolling out my structured rest framework. I'm very excited to talk to you guys about that in the new year. I might have some previews in December about that, but I'm going to wrap up practice closure. You got a couple guests coming to you with a little bit of burnout themes, career with Alki's episodes. It's more career kind of focused. So anyway, I will stop rambling and get you to my interview with Alki. Please enjoy. Hey therapists, welcome back to the program. Today I have a guest, Alki Thompson. How are you today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
I'm so glad to have you. So we started talking a little bit on LinkedIn, and we're just vibing about career stuff. And like why it's so hard out there to kind of figure out what is the next thing if you've been doing a career for a long time. Like many therapists have been training for years. They have been, all their life has been doing this work. And if you can't do this work anymore, how do you even start to examine the next thing? So that's what we're going to get into today. We're going to talk more about that. But first, I'd just like to hear from you a little bit about your story and what brought you to doing recruiting and career coaching. So if you could just share about yourself and what led you to be in the place you're in.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I am, long story short, did a lot of work in the nonprofit and community space in the beginning of my career. I myself made a pivot and a transition. Some of it was burnout. Some of it was because the career probably wasn't, paying me enough of my worth. I also needed to go back to school and finish a degree, so I decided to do that. And in doing that, I asked myself the question: Hey, after all these years of working in the community and nonprofit space and youth development, what are you going to do with yourself? And a lot of it had to do with passion and around helping people still, but helping businesses, being a consultant, getting out of the public eye with the crowds and everybody needing me and moving to a space where I can serve specific clients. And so I moved from kind of a B2C to a B2B model. Decided to make a career change, get my degree in business, headed down the human resources track, bumped into a recruiter. We got to talking and she hired me on the spot. And I'm heading almost into year 15 of being a recruiter.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds really cool. So talk to me about I'm always interested in like career pivot stories. So talk to me a little bit about that story. I'm interested in that from your perspective.
Yeah, so I found myself in a place where my career and I love nonprofits and nonprofits do great work and some people are still my friends who've been in that field for many years. But for my own story, I bounced around a bit. There was a few layoffs, in there, and I kind of took a step back. I also had a bit of a health issue that arose, and I kind of took a macro look and just said, what do you want to do next? This career is great, but there's more compensation for you. There's more that you can do with yourself. There's some other passions you have. There's some other work that you can do. And so initially I thought, let me get out of the seat of being the one that everybody turns to for help, and let me move into more of the role of a specialist. I was a sports coach, a sports trainer, and so I thought organizational development and training was going to be the route that I would go into. And so I kind of bid on that a little bit, and it kind of opened me up to looking at the human resources field. I thought I would end up, being a trainer. And I still teach and train to this day as a career coach and a recruiter and a resume writer. But that kind of sparked the pivot was kind of a combination of things: a little bit of burnout, a little bit of a career, instability, and also just probably compensation, not making enough to truly live and thrive like I wanted to. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think most therapists will resonate if they're in this spot of like, I can't do this work anymore. Number one, either due to the burnout, like extreme burnout and fatigue due to the exposure to trauma and the work itself. And I think pay is huge. So I don't think I talk enough about it, but we don't talk about, if you studied all this time to be in this career and then you get to the point where you're in a terminal degree, like in my case, I have a doctoral degree out of the terminal degree. I think for social workers, you can go on to get a doctorate in social work, but pretty much master's level, like
hmm
that's their practicing level.
yeah.
And so if you're at the place where I'm looking at the cap of my degree potential and the math isn't mathing,
hmm
and I don't think I can do this career anymore. How do you come alongside people who are in that spot? Like many of my listeners.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm obviously not a trained or licensed therapist, or at least, I may have practiced psychology throughout the years with all the populations that I've worked with. But um, one of the industries that I might consider respectfully to what you all do. In working with youth, there's a lot of teachers that I used to work with, and that's a field where you get a degree, you go down a track, and it has a long scope to it, and especially before you can quote unquote reap a lot of the benefits. And so when I worked with a lot of teachers, and when I was in my crossover years, because I would still go back every now and then and maybe coach or put myself in a position where I'm around, teachers or folks who are in that field. A lot of them would say, hey, Alki, you're a recruiter. What can I do next? I'm a teacher. And the first thing I always said was, you guys can do anything. You've got all kinds of talent and abilities and capabilities, and you've taught and you've done lesson plans. You got presentation skills. You've done a lot. But yes, finding a professional umbrella to house your credentials and your qualifications. You're probably not going to walk right out one door and into another door and somebody says, hey, you teacher, come here, let's slap a new profession on you. So it is a process and a progression as well. And I think that one of the first things that you have to do is, have your why. Why are you looking to leave in the first place? What's driving you? What's motivating you to leave? Is it burnout? Is it you're bored? Is it you just want to do something else? Is it you're tired of being the one that everybody goes to? Do you have other hobbies, other interests that you have thought about going back to pursue? So I think number one is what's your why and what's your motivation for leaving? Number two is probably the biggest next step is taking a step back and really looking at your strengths, outside of, your credentials in your current field as a therapist, but what are some of the skills and strengths and capabilities and abilities that you possess that you may have used or not used in your practice? And sometimes that is where, a coach, a career coach like myself or somebody else comes in just to help you look through your background and ask you a certain row of questions to determine and help you determine, okay, well, I didn't even know that was something that transfers. What's transferable in the real world and in the market? And so I think that next step of really looking at what your strengths are and having somebody kind of do an assessment with you and an evaluation to help you pull out what transfers and what probably doesn't.
Mm-hmm. And that progression. So, okay, being very basic because I see the forums, I see the threads of therapists. I'm talking about hopeless people. They use those words. I am hopeless. I cannot figure out how to get out of this career. And number one, I tell people you're not trapped. Like number one, you're not trapped. You can do something else, whether that be like Instacart. If you have to do it, you have to do it until you can like make moves to work with someone like you or to kind of figure out that next like pivot point. So that's what I tell people first. We still have choices.
Yeah.
So where do you see if they are in that place of like, I'm just stuck in this one-to-one therapy model, like I can't see a way out. I have no idea. This is what they tell me. I have no idea what even I could do. How do you get out of that spot?
That is a good question. Immediately, because I was mentioning a second ago, I was talking about hobbies and things like that. But what you just made me do was even reverse a step, steps back, further back, than where I was headed. Stuck mode, it sounds like you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So I can imagine there's some people who have had a thought, I don't want to do this anymore. Maybe they had that thought 2 years ago, but they're still practicing. Someone may have said, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do X, Y, Z. Well, that thread should be pulled. Other people were like, I simply have zero idea what I want to do and what step to take next. Well, your example of Instacart proves that there are other things out there that you can do. You could close your eyes and spin around 3 times and find anything, including volunteering, which actually is one of my points of advice is passion areas, intrigue, go volunteer.
Okay.
Just to start opening your mind and opening your brain and changing your scenery. But to your point, there are some proactive first steps that have to be taken. So for example, If you have flexibility in your schedule and it's not a monetary issue and you could actually close your appointment book, you could use that time to simply go explore something you've never explored before.
Mm-hmm.
But it does take some proactivity, and it does take also breaking the glass. You know, you do have to get to the point where you're willing to either break the glass or at least tap on the glass, that very precious glass that you're holding on to. It does take a willingness to either drop it and break it, tap it, or at least move it to another spot. If it's been sitting there on the desk in the same spot, first step could be just moving it to a new spot and seeing what that's like.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, I mean, I think we get so stuck on like where it has to be in this way. We have to use our skills in this container. There's nothing else I can do. Like for me, I'm going back to my story because that's what I know and the stories of other therapists. But, I built a private practice, which was I called it my baby. I always tell people it's not your baby, it's a business. You don't want to break your baby, right? Your business, you could break.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
And I don't believe in like burning the ships. I think that feels really risky, and it's
Yeah.
not, especially in today's market. That's not
Yeah.
a great idea.
Yeah.
But perhaps like, can we? And my move was a contract job,
Mm-hmm.
and I kept my practice for another 4 or 5 months
Mm-hmm.
until I felt like, okay, this is stable. There's income here, and this feels okay for me. So I don't know if you recommend similar pivots. Have you seen people kind of do that? Where we're talking about that metaphor of breaking the glass, like for therapists, especially who are risk adverse. Most of us are very risk adverse.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have this mug, throw in this mug. If this is, you're not looking at the video right now, if I just throw this and break it, I like this mug. Number one,
Yeah.
it's cozy, keeps
Yeah.
me comfortable like a job would. So no, I'm just going to set it and move it a little bit
Mm-hmm.
instead of breaking that thing.
That's a good metaphor follow up. So to be clear, for those who want to change and have been thinking about this for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, 9 years, and feel stuck and know for sure, not only do you want to leave, you need to leave and make a change to something else. I respect every credential, every hour spent, every exam that was done way, way back, and every training, every license. That's precious. Don't break that. Don't break everything that you've built with your career. What you're breaking is maybe fear of that first step, change. Even the thought that you could you dare think as a licensed therapist that you would ever do anything else? Sure you can. Of course. That doesn't hurt anything. It's just a thought. So you're breaking and shattering that whoever told you this is what you're going to be for the rest of your life. Nobody can tell you that. Just because you studied and spent money on license and whatever it takes to get those qualifications and credentials, you don't have to be that one thing forever. So my story is a career transition, and becoming a recruiter, I didn't set out to become a recruiter. I was studying HR, and I joined a local HR group and went to a local SHRM meeting, which is Society of Human Resource Management. I went to a local meeting. The speaker who was speaking just happened to be a recruiter, and I loved what she had to say. I loved the way she said it. And I went up and shook her hand after, and that handshake turned into, give me a call. I think I want to hire you. I just went to a meeting and met someone. And after talking to her and listening to what she did and how she did it, she was a corporate trainer as well and a career coach and all those things. But I saw in her things that I had contemplated before: a consultant, helping businesses, helping people, which is what I did in my other life, in my other career. I was still going to be helping people, solving problems, using my brain, using my intelligence. But it was the freedom. She worked remote. She told me I could work remote. I wanted to do that. I didn't have to be around a lot of people. So I simply just went to a meeting, and that began to shatter, the glass for me of furthering me along and to making a transition. And so, and wrap up to what you said about the glass. Yeah, you don't have to throw away everything that you did. You could even, I'm sure you've said this before too, you could move to part-time practice. You could volunteer. You could
Yeah.
do a one-day thing. You could take a class. You could take a course. You could watch YouTube video just to begin the exploratory process.
Yeah, I think there's so many moves that you could make. I find for a lot of my folks, like, they have to get out of that depletion phase first. Like, if they are just so drained and
Mhm.
they're compassion fatigue or vicarious trauma, they need to do some burnout recovery before they can make these moves. And so, like, I feel like your brain and body have to be in a better spot to be
Mhm.
clear-headed. So that's why, stabilizing that income first is often what I recommend. Like, hey, let's make sure you are in a place to make those sound decisions,
Mhm.
stabilize your income as much as possible. And from there, then start, like, maybe it is time to explore. Maybe it is time to look and branch out. And it was interesting just talking to you. It made me think about my process, and interviewing for different jobs actually gave me some clarity
Mhm.
on different experiences. And it's since 20, when did I close my I started this exploration process probably in 22. So I started going on job
Mhm.
interviews, and I have been doing contract work and this consulting stuff for, a few years now. And each year I have to re-up my contract. So I feel like I'm constantly, like, looking at different relationships. I have a contract this year because I went to a conference,
Mhm.
had a conversation with one other psychologist who said, "Oh yeah, this other school was actually looking for a psychologist to
Yeah.
contract with."
Yep. I just listening to you, for sure. You if you need to shore up finances and money and budget and all of those things, that's number one. You want to be as stable as you can. Obviously, if you're making a scary change or a big change, something as big as a career change, and I tell people this all the time. There is your career job or your career next move, and then there's just a job or some work. And
Yes.
in this climate, for example, it's a really tough and difficult market, which is the negative A side of what I'm going to say here on your call today, is that for anybody making a transition, just leaping from the window right now is risky and it's tough and it's difficult. For some people, they're like, no, Alki, you know, Jen, I need to jump out the window. I need to. Hey, if that's what you need, if you need
You
to make
need
a
to do it.
drastic move, do what you need to do.
Do it.
For everybody else who needs a process or steps or a plan or stability, that's what I was really bringing to this call, because I can easily tell you on the day, yeah, rip the band-aid off, shatter the glass. On the other side of the coin,
And I think, like, the shatter the glass,
uh-huh,
like, if you were in the place where you're like, I cannot put another foot into this building,
uh-huh,
into this work, like, my body is
yeah,
screaming.
yeah,
That is like let's go. We're rip the Band-Aid off. Like, you are done.
yeah,
You've been overdone. So, and it's scary, but some people are in that place where it's like FMLA time.
mhm,
They cannot work.
yeah.
So take that break, and then maybe after that break, you get the pivot.
Work, my company, Smith and Deal mantra, work smarter. But also, I've always preached health, which is where I think you and I bonded. Health, wellness, taking care of you first comes first. And I think to make a clear-headed decision as well, sure, you can leap, you can jump, you can shatter the glass, but you don't want to have too many regrets moving forward either. So my approach, to people who are normally coming to me saying, Alki, I'm making a career change. I've done this forever, and now I want to make a career change. I don't know what I want to do next. I kind of know what I want to do next, or, I don't know what I want to do next at all. The first place that I start with them is, again, the why. Why are you looking to leave in the first place? Because that begins to tell me what not to look for in your next, what you're running from or what you're leaving, so that I can go ahead and start putting an X on those types of things or asking more questions around it, because maybe it wasn't the thing. It might have been the situation or the way the thing was built or the way that you work. So, for example, licensed therapist, school psychologist, or someone in that vein I've worked with before, the setting may not work for everyone, but the credentials, the qualifications, and what the value and the assets and the expertise that you have to offer, there could be $1 billion company somewhere that pays you and hires you on staff just to help them think through decisions. So sometimes you can
Are
even
they hiring?
think.
You got somebody? I'm coming on.
That's hilarious. Honestly, though, that's where I get my kicks in what I do. This may sound strange. Maybe you can dissect it or pick my brain for why I get a joy for years when people tell me, Alki, I want to leave this place. I've been an inside corporate recruiter too. So there's times when I've worked for a company and inside people said, hey, Alki, don't tell anybody, but I'm actually looking at leaving this place. Now, I didn't jump up and down and go, hey, wow, great, get out of here. But it's something about that. It always lit me up. And the reason why is because they're leaving for a reason. They've done what they're doing, and something about this place or something about new is what's pulling them. And I try to help people get where they're supposed to be. You need to get where you're supposed to be. Whatever that looks like, you need to be where you're supposed to be. And sometimes you've been somewhere for a while and it's time to leave.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, for therapists, I think that's a hard one because I think they often, and there's pretty clear research on this, they often stay until they burn, literally. So there's not like a lot of indicators that, hey, I'm kind of getting crispy, I'm kind of burning out, this is kind of a red flag for me. It's like, oh, I am already to depletion. And now I'm kind of freaking out because I'm like, this is affecting my life at home. It's affecting my parenting. It's affecting my relationships.
Yeah.
And so I think the fit for the person and the things about therapy that is a struggle, I think, is because it's isolating work, number one. You're in a room with one client,
Mm-hmm.
and unless you're in a certain setting where you talk about your work, it can be tricky to get support, right? So the social support is a hard piece.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, like, for those folks and the progression with that, I mean, I think you've talked a little bit about like how they might start to think about this, but maybe thinking about what fields do you see therapists going on? Is it like, does it span across a lot of different types of work, or do you see kind of themes there?
I hate to not have the perfect answer on this one, but
I don't think there is one, so
yeah,
that's good.
yeah. So I think every situation and every person is different. So that's the non-fun answer to start with, is that every person and every situation is different. And this is how I approach recruiting for years. This is how I approach job seekers who come to me. And I don't care if it's two marketing directors who work in a similar space. Their situations are different. Everybody's situation is different. That being said, sure, you could go online and try to say, hey, what's the best career change for, therapist? Even that's tough to say because, hey, maybe you like listening and helping guide people, and you don't want to do it anymore. But that skill and that trait of helping people, guiding people, helping people discover and all of that, maybe you don't want to do that anymore. Maybe you don't want to talk to people. Maybe you don't want to be in a one-on-one situation anymore. So that particular person, their situation may be different than someone else's. I could easily talk about, the skills and the traits and the background that you all have and what fields could use that. But if you're leaving trauma for a certain reason, and just because you find a match of your skills and your background and what you can do, you may land at a company that's toxic. That's not going to be good. So I think everybody's situation is different, which is why I keep going back to first making some time to just stop and really write down what are the main reasons I'm looking to leave this practice, this work. What do I want to change if I could, wave a magic wand? What about my work would I change? Because that begins to help you build what you're looking for next and what you're not looking for. I literally talk to candidates who come to me and say, I'm making a career pivot or I want to look for a new job, Alki. I start with, all right, let's talk about what you're looking for And then now let's talk about what you're not looking for. Because once they give me their specs, job, compensation amount, title, company, culture, all those things, it kind of tells me what they want and what they don't want. But if they tell me a certain industry and I'm like, okay, you want to work in the electrical industry, well, tell me the types of companies or cultures that you want to avoid. And they're like, oh, let me tell you about that, because that helps me to fine tune, which is what, you'll want to do at the end. You may not start fine tune and target it. You just got to get a start somewhere. But at the end of the day, I think it's very important to sit down and really look at your why to start out at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes so much sense. And it's wonderful when the things that I think are also like mirrored back, the things they say on this show, where I'm like, therapists ask me, what can I do, Jen? What is my next job? I'm like, I don't know, Target, the library, like who knows? Like only you know. Only you can be the one that can uncover those answers so that you can eventually figure it out, because it is so, that's the answer in psychology. It depends.
I, I guess I'm on my way to becoming a psychologist. I
You
will
might be.
I will say, well, actually, and I do it in a lot of my work. I use a lot of psychology. I do a lot of listening. I do a lot of guiding, but similar to what you guys do, respectfully, again, I listen a lot. I try to ask the questions that matter. And by listening, it is a journey. It's a guide and a discovery. And so to your question about the fields, I mean, sure, there's a lot of fields who could use you all's minds, your patience, your guidance, your putting a plan together, being strategic about change, but also being open-minded. There's a lot of fields who could use who you all are. It's the same thing like I said, I say to teachers is, my God, there's so many people out there who could use you. And again, I'll use the teacher example. Presentation skills. So what? You were a kindergarten teacher. But if you've been a kindergarten teacher for 12 years or an eighth grade teacher, you've put together lesson plans and presentations for years. You know the
Mhm.
tech. You know the presentation tech. Who could use you? Sales companies, marketing companies, training or development companies can use you to stand up and teach and train. And so in you all's field, you all have been masters of counsel, advisors. There are roles out there to simply be an advisor to leadership, a senior staff advisor, a team advisor, an advisor on change. Right now, with what's happening in America, number one, or the United States, with all the change and what's happening politically, so many companies are sitting around in boardrooms asking, with every new tariff or every challenge, what move should we make? Wait a minute, we just had a meeting last week and we said we were going to do this. Change management, navigating an exodus, or all the people that are being laid off. They need advisors. They need brains who can help them think through decisions. You might have to be trained up on what the company does and what the industry is, but an advisor who can help, advise leadership and other folks. There are a ton of fields out there that could use your background and experience.
Yeah. That's so good. I'm just wondering, like, I know I've seen some questions from therapists about working, like, what is a recruiter? Like, what do you do? How do you interface with companies? And so, can you just talk a little bit about that? Because I think people might have questions.
Yep. So, recruiters are not all the same. There are corporate recruiters, which is if you go on LinkedIn or Indeed and apply for a job, or let me do it better. If you go directly to a company website, depending on the company, if they're a large, let's say they're a name brand like, I don't know, Target, go on the Target website. If a job is posted, there's a good chance that if you apply, the first person who's going to see that is going to be a recruiter from HR. An internal recruiter who works for the company, is on salary with the company, or it could be a contractor, but still working for the HR recruitment department. That's a corporate recruiter or internal recruiter. I've done that before in my past. What I am now is an independent recruiter or a headhunter. And so what I do is work with companies like Target or others who need to go outside sometimes of their typical recruitment and recruitment team. And they may have a special search that they want to do only outside. They don't want to post this job. They want to work with a headhunter or recruiter or recruitment firm who can keep it a bit quiet while they do a search and hunt for a certain type of talent. And also what I do is I may go on LinkedIn. If I have a client who's looking for a role like that, I may give you a virtual tap on the shoulder, hey, I see you're working at XYZ company. Have you ever thought about, trying a different industry, and what would that look like for you? So as a headhunter, that's what I do now. I work not as an internal recruiter, but an external recruiter,
Because
executive search.
I've seen also therapists asking questions of like, who do I trust? As far as a recruiter, like, how would they help me? So can you, like, for the job seeker side, like, how would you help somebody potentially?
Sure. Yeah, trust. We could do another episode just on trusting recruiters. So I say it again, not every recruiter is created equal. Most of us are good. Most of us are trustworthy and have had to go through some form of training or compliance when it comes to human resources or equal opportunity employment, things of that nature. So most of us are at least aware of the recruiting practice and, treating people the way they should be treated and being professional. Um, right now, a lot of job seekers, because the market is crowded, there's more job seekers than there are jobs right now. So there's a lot of people looking. And that being said, when supply is more than demand, and if there's more candidates looking, there could be 400, 500 candidates who apply for a role within the first 24 hours. With that being the
Mhm.
case, that means recruiters can very easily be less personable and just rely on, you applying and going in the system and just saying, nope, 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 nope. All right, we found somebody that's a possible, and 10 to 20 or 30 no's in a row. And so you may contact recruiters if they're internal, like I was describing a second ago. Internal recruiters don't have the freedom and the luxury that I do because they're probably dealing with 20 to 30 to 40 or 50 different recruitments on their desk at one time. Me as an internal recruiter, I'm an external recruiter and executive who does executive search. I'm more highly focused search. I may only have one or two or three recruitments, at one given time that I'm working on. And that may go 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, four. I do more of a hands-on approach with candidates and clients. And then I'm also a career coach. And so working with a recruiter, if you applying for a job online, chances are, unless they respond and like you and invite you to an interview, you're probably not going to get personal touch. You're probably not going to get contacted back. And even if you do apply and they invite you to an interview, and if they say no, you're probably not going to get feedback on your application, yada yada yada. And so you have to pack your patience if you're going to apply online, which is why me and a lot of my fellow headhunters and career coaches tell a lot of people, apply online, make that a small part of your search, but you really need to use your network. You really need to work with one or two recruiters like myself or career coaches who can offer some guidance on how to make your job search more efficient. Building trust,
Mhm.
that may take a while. And again, talking to somebody like myself who can kind of tell you what to look for and how to avoid certain people who say certain things or certain catchphrases, you can quickly probably, toss them in the side of, a little sketchy.
Yeah. Oh, it's really helpful. I mean, it's a lot of information that I didn't know, and I think it would be helpful for therapists because I see them asking these questions about, who could be helpful. And then hear, a lot of like, there's AI generated resumes now and cover letters. And then there's supposedly, AI on the other side that can tell that you used AI. And so I don't know what the role of AI has been in job seeking and in hiring. So maybe speak a little bit to that because I think people are talking about that more too.
Yeah, that's a major discussion right now. And it has been for the last probably 2 to 3 years, the whole AI and your job search. So one thing that I tell people is, like I mentioned, when I was an internal recruiter, we use an ATS or an applicant tracking system. And so when you first apply on a company's, you know, career page, We use an applicant tracking system to track everyone who applies when we post a job. And so we can see if I have 25 recruitments for every role that I post or have posted. I used to come in the morning every day, and one of the first things I did when I logged into my system was, all right, let me go to our ATS. Let me see, especially for my hot jobs that were urgent, I would go and say, hey, let me see who applied since yesterday. Let me go ahead and take a look to swipe left or swipe right on these candidates. That was already a form and a version of intel or intelligence right there. Some applicant tracking systems have been wired or trained to screen in or screen out candidates, with a little bit more intel. But for the most part, I know that even that message that says, "Hey, thank you for applying, but unfortunately, no, but we'll keep your resume on file." Like, I would have to go in and put messages, program messages like that into the system so that if I hit, yeah, this candidate is a no, the system could then, send you that email. Where we are today is some companies are employing systems that are a little bit more advanced that can screen candidates in or out. A lot of people are like, "Oh man, is it a robot who screened me out?" A lot of times, and I don't want to give a fake percentage, but I would say that most of the systems that are out there, it's still a human who's looking and making a decision, yay or nay. But there are some systems that are, a bit more auto, kind of, hey, if you don't have these keywords or buzzwords on your resume, we're going to screen you out, which, by the way, going back to my other point,
Hmm.
applying online is just like a blind date. I mean, a total blind date where you were just told, go meet someone at 8 o'clock at the local coffee shop. You're going in completely cold. You're going in completely blind. You
Yeah.
could walk in the first 3 seconds and go, it's a no. I don't even want to sit down. It's a no. That's almost what it's like when you apply blind, which on the other hand, though there is AI out there which writes resumes and all of that, even if you have AI write a resume, hey, can you write me a marketing resume? Sure, it could, but that's still no guarantee that you are the perfect match. If you come across a recruiter like me who's more nuancy, I may look at that immediately and I can tell, you just did an AI resume. Like, let me ask you a question about this in your background. And then you start stuttering. So I would say that with all the tech that's out there, especially for people who are looking to transition or change careers,
Hmm.
you should really start at square one with a career coach or a recruiter and just talk through first who you are and what you've done, and then start developing where you're headed first and what your new brand, your new rebrand is going to be before you start going out marketing yourself. Because you may think you're the hottest thing, that's now hitting the market. But I don't know anybody who, thinks that and then just goes and jumps into the race and has no idea what qualifications they're really looking for XYZ type of a job. You really shouldn't jump out into this AI world and this applicant tracking system world raw and cold. You can just to kind of see what it's like and get your feet wet. But if you want success, because you're going to be really discouraged if you just jump out there and get a lot of no's, you're going to be rejected. And that's going to double this whole fear and everything you have about changing worlds. So you really should sit down with a pro and really talk through your transition. So we can, after we find out what you're looking for, somebody like me can then tell you, okay, now let's talk about the best places you should be looking, the best job boards, the best
Okay.
networking groups and meetings you should be going to.
Yeah. I mean, I love what you're saying, and it's things that I've been reflecting back to my audience based on, my certification in career coaching and my personal experience. And
Yeah.
what I've seen in the space is that most people find their jobs, and the research shows us is through your own network. It's through people you know. And so working that network, and some therapists look at me like, "What? Like my network?" Why don't I just I think it's not something that people really think. The
Yeah.
first thing is to work your own network. But that's where all my roles have come from, pretty much, except for one, which I was really lucky to get when I got on my postdoc. So we are rounding the end of this episode. I think it's
Oh,
really,
no.
valuable and packed with so much for therapists. I'm just kind of curious. I'm trying to think of other things too that therapists may want to know from you. Anything that's jumping out to you that I didn't ask you?
Well, I was about to piggyback on what you just said about networking. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, because the job market is so packed, and living here in the DC area, 495, the Beltway, especially,
Shout out to
you
the
know,
703, my roots.
shout out to the 703, the 202, the 301, the 571, all the rest of those, 443, Baltimore. But um, the job market right now is a hurry up and wait situation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me back up. Applying online is a hurry up and wait situation. Most people who I have been coaching and talking to in the last 2 years, baby boomers, Gen Xers who are finding themselves either laid off or similar to your audience. Um, what do I want to do now in my life? What do I want to do with the next years of my life? What kind of a pivot do I want to do? And they're finding out, wait a minute, I used to just, sit down and apply for a job and a recruiter would hit me back in about an hour or at least within 24 hours. That's not really happening anymore. And the reason why is because it's similar to Beltway traffic. I mean, if you go out at 5 o'clock or 5:30 here in the DC area, you can
Forget it.
expect to wait. And so what I have been doing over all my career, really, but over the last several years is telling people, don't get on the Beltway. Take Route 1, take this exit, take this highway. There are other exits of less traffic to other routes you can go to finding your next opportunity. And networking is still number one. It's still word of mouth. It's still who you know. And even if you apply online, that first person you talk to, if they screen you and say, okay, good, I think I'm going to move you to the next round. I think they're going to like you. Someone still vouched for you. Nothing happens in this situation without someone vouching for you. So why put yourself in a situation with a bunch of strangers where you're cold versus someone who knows you, even if they met you in 10 minutes at a happy hour or some other function? It's now about trust, because when an employer picks up a resume and they look and they're like, wait a minute, is she kidding? She had a licensed therapy practice and now she wants to do this other thing with us? Who she's kidding? I can't trust that she knows what she's doing. However, if you have a friend who says, hey, I know someone, I know you're in a career pivot, but they have a role, even if it's part-time or whatever, I can talk to them for you. That's going to get you in the door. So trust is huge. Trust is huge, and networking is huge. Plus, when you're networking, me and my colleagues, we say, instead of competitors, there's other job seekers who are not your competitors. They're your competitive mates. Sometimes you can find
Mm-hmm.
someone who's looking to make a move and you tell them, hey, I'm looking also. If you see something that you don't like, or if you get a call or an interview it's not the opportunity for you, it might be for me. So here's what I'm looking for. And you tell that to 3 or 4 or 5 people. You now have 4 or 5 other recruiters, which you should include recruiters in that too, people like me. But you now have 4 or 5 or 6 other people who are looking for you, and they're bumping, and you just multiplied and exponentially grew your search firm, your search party.
That's great. Competimates.
Mm-hmm.
Are you team members? I play tennis, so I'm still, athletic and competitive.
I
And
hit,
so,
I hit a
I,
little bit.
What'd you say?
I hit a little bit.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yes. I talk about tennis and if I'm watching, one of the opens or something, I'll put in no, I was like, I love Osaka. I've loved Osaka for a long time. And so, I was just happy to see her come back this year.
Mm-hmm.
So I talk tennis on the podcast a good bit. And I don't know, I'm like, either you're a therapist and you're burnout or you just like my tennis conversations. Like, I don't know which one it is. But
Hey, watching somebody hit a ball back and forth or just talking about tennis, that could be therapeutic for the
yeah,
burnout.
well, bilateral, both sides of the body. It's great. So we have to wrap up for today, but I wonder where people might want to reach out to you if they're curious about what your offerings are, or if you have any freebies for people who are seeking a job or just thinking about maybe what is that pivot after what I'm doing now.
Absolutely. Um, I love having these conversations with people. Again, I love it. I love transitionary talk, talking about your next. And so I am the owner of my own recruitment and search firm and career coaching practice called Smith and Deal, which you may give them that information. It's Deal with an E at the end, but I'm found at smithdeal.com. And if you go there again, SMITHDEALE.com, and click on the career support page, you'll be able to read down and see some of the different conversations and services and coaching, that I offer there. So you can definitely reach out to me there. I'm also on LinkedIn, Alki, Alki Thompson on LinkedIn. You can find me there as well. Would love to have conversations. I do free discovery calls, and anybody who calls from your audience, I will stretch out that little 20, just don't worry about that 20-minute discovery session for your first, because they're your audience and your friends. I can extend that. And I know that this is a longer conversation instead of rushing it. So also I have a discount for any of your people who decide to they want to talk to me further and actually make it a long-term discussion. At least a 15% discount using the code Dr. Jen 15 will get them 15% off on any services, resume or coaching included. So would love to help your folks discover, talk about new career, talk through transition, talk through building a new resume for the first time.
That's great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. And I know that folks are going to get a lot of value out of what we discussed.
Loved it. Appreciate it. Would love to talk to you again and your people as well.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.